Directed by Simon McQuoid, this R-rated reboot of the MK franchise follows MMA fighter Cole Young as he's recruited by Jax and Sonya to fight alongside the champions of Earthrealm against Shang Tsung and the forces of Outworld. Starring Louis Tan as Cole Young, Jessica McNamee as Sonya Blade, Josh Lawson as Kano, Joe Taslim as Bihan, Makad Brooks as Jax, Tadanobu Asano as Lord Raiden, Hiroyuki Sanada as Hanzo Hasashi, Chin Han as Shang Tsung, Ludi Lin as Liu Kang, Max Wong as Kung Lao, and Cece Stringer as Melina in 2021's Mortal Kombat.
It had the same marking you do, Cole.
It's not a birthmark, Cole. It means you've been chosen.
Throughout history, different cultures all over the world reference a great tournament of champions. That dragon marking? I think it's an invitation to fight for something known as Mortal Kombat.
These are your champions.
I'm Sonya. That's Kano.
I'm Liu Kang.
Name's Jax.
Kung Lao. Lord Raiden. The fate of Earth is in our hands.
No matter how many of my people you put in the ground,
We will not fail.
kill them.
I am Sub-Zero. Get over here!
Kano wins. You f***ing beauty.
Nothing in this world can prepare you for this. You have been chosen by the Elder Gods as a representative of Earthrealm to record in the podcast of the century. Every season, the best podcasters from around the world are assembled to review, reminisce, and riff on a popular franchise. On the latest season of Podcasters Assemble, we're taking a look back at all the movies and games of the Mortal Kombat franchise. Choose your mic. Together, you will be facing off against a gauntlet of films. 1995's Mortal Kombat, 1997's Mortal Kombat Annihilation, 2020's Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge, and finally, this year's release of Mortal Kombat in theaters and on HBO Max. Go to probablywork.com for more information on how to submit to this or future seasons of the show, and listen to the latest episodes of Podcasters Assemble. Mortal Podcast!
Podcasters, assemble!
Hey, this is Chris from Comic Zombie.
Hello, I am Lacey Finley, co-host of the Super Mega Crash Brothers Turbo podcast.
Hi, this is Lokathar.
Eric Slater here from Epic Fails of History and Too Young for This Trek.
Yo, this is Corey from The World Is My Burrito.
Hi, I'm Stephen White, co-host of the Super Mega Crash Brothers Turbo podcast.
Hello, I'm Mike Belfance from the Neatcast.
This is Zach from the Neatcast and Effin' Cultured.
Hi, this is Justin Aki, graphic designer at One Half Significant Article.
Hey, what's up? This is Ben Thompson from Badass of the Week.
And today we are here to talk about
Mortal Kombat
2021.
Mortal Kombat 2021.
Mortal Kombat 2021.
Today, finally talking about Mortal Kombat 2021.
Spoiler alert.
So here we are, the final fight, Mortal Kombat 2021.
Mortal Kombat, we're finally to 2021 edition, which was a awesome fucking movie.
As someone who loved the original Mortal Kombat, hated the second, played a few of the games, this movie was friggin' awesome.
First of all, I love this movie.
I really had high hopes for this one.
The story is dumb. The acting is inconsistent.
Okay, fine. It's based on a rehash of the first movie, mixed with a little bit of the Scorpion movie, some of the games, but I don't care. It's great.
But the action, the only thing that matters, is gory and incredibly choreographed and amazing.
So I'm old enough to remember when the first Mortal Kombat came out in arcades, which is to say I'm certainly old enough to remember going to arcades and remember arcades, period. But Mortal Kombat was, I liked Street Fighter 2 a lot. And I have a lot of love for the home version of Street Fighter 2 just for nostalgic purposes. But for a kid like me who grew up loving horror movies and trying to watch stuff that was always intended for an older audience than whatever age group I was in, Mortal Kombat really spoke to me. It's a mixture of like all the things I liked about horror movies and violent action films, and then martial arts movies really struck a nerve. Like I really jumped onto it really quickly, and the gratuitous violence was just a bonus. You know, Mortal Kombat 2 in particular, I have a lot of memories about when that game first came out and randomly seeing it in an arcade and being like, what the hell, there's a part 2? And there was just a line like halfway around the mall in Atlanta of people waiting to play this game. So that being said, I've always had, I won't say high hopes or high expectations, but really wanted to see a good Mortal Kombat movie. And I'm not sure if we're ever going to get a really good one, but this is probably as close as we're going to get.
Prospects of a new Mortal Kombat film had been bouncing around Hollywood for some time, but to no avail.
We've been waiting nearly a quarter of a decade to get this movie because Annihilation came along and it all up back in 1997.
Despite the name being a hot commodity, video game movies had kind of a toxicity about them in the industry. Comic book movies used to be the same way. No one wanted to touch them, mainly because most filmmakers and producers didn't know how to approach them. They just thought they were silly kids' books, and that's how they made them to be. In the case of video game movies, the running theme was to cram whatever references that you could from the game into the movie, and then work the story around it. Obviously, this doesn't work. Eventually, more competent filmmakers started making better video game movies, and the rate of good to bad began to shift. But even today, there are more bad than good, and we can all thank Uwe Boll for that. So, does this new film adaptation of Mortal Kombat tip the scales in favor of good, or keep the bad weighted down?
So we have an R rating, check. The violence and gore you would expect, check. A CGI that looks good, check. So far, I think we've hit the boxes, right?
In my opinion, it's better than most, but not one of the best.
There are a lot of problems. It's pretty cringy at times, but damn, did they bring it. They swung for the fences, man, and it's hyper violent. You know, some of the characters are quite likable and very entertaining.
Mortal Kombat 2021, first time seeing the film. Yes, it was my first time seeing the film.
So, I actually managed to get vaccinated before this one came out, and it was the first movie I saw in theaters in at least a year and a half. Just being able to experience that again was really something special. And it was one of those new fancy theaters with the reclining chairs, which was an added bonus. I was equally thankful that the movie was also available on HBO Max because I was able to watch it from home a couple more times, which really helps when taking notes for the show.
While this was the first big project for director Simon McQuoid, the fact that James Wan was attached to produce gave the film a little bit of pedigree in my book.
This movie is directed by Simon McQuoid. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's his first real movie, and I think he does a pretty good job of it. There's some cool effects when they're entering into the Mortal Kombat arena, and what they're doing with some of the fun camera angle stuff. Some of the fight stuff is really good. I think he's doing a good job with this.
However, considering how disjointed the film feels, I'm not sure how much he contributed to the final product. Or maybe I'm just giving him too much credit.
Just having read interviews with the screenwriter, I know there were a lot of limitations placed on them from the studio where they had to really find creative ways to write their way around some problems that were mandated to them. And I think all things considered, they did a really good job.
It's an update to what we already wanted from Mortal Kombat. It's a you to anyone who doesn't know the detailed character histories to catch up on Easter eggs. I mean, there's a freaking vampire bat lady I had to look up, among other people. It's a fun ride overall.
I didn't know a ton about Mortal Kombat going into this movie, and I never watched any of the previews because I just kind of don't care to do that anymore.
The problem with this film, for me, is that it doesn't lack a cohesive story.
Sure, there's some dumb things. Cole's plot armor. But I see it as a good start to a reboot of the series for MK. It's not going to be the next MCU, but if we get like 3 movies out of it, that would be great.
The fighting in this movie is awesome. The choreography is good. It's legitimately good.
But I got everything that I wanted from it. Mortal Kombat has always been really about like eclectic fighters and fighting.
It starts off strong, giving us the origins of Hanzo Hasashi and Bihan, but then it slowly begins to fall apart when new elements are introduced.
The absurdity of the game where people have, you know, guns or giant swords or hammers or whatever, and everyone somehow survives is definitely kind of like the unifying factor for why I care to watch it, you know. You got dudes with guns who shoot people's brains out and yet somehow they survive. Just this gratuitous, clearly killing people and them just like getting back up, kind of brushing it off and fighting. And that is what I wanted to see, and that is pretty much what I got.
It's gory as hell. I mean, they leaned into the R rating hard. They didn't shy away from language. They didn't shy away from hyper-violence. They didn't shy away from gore. It's all there. I mean, it's Mortal Kombat on screen. It's not a lot to complain about.
Now I'll admit, I didn't watch any of the trailers because I didn't have great expectation going into it. Sure, the poster got me, but still, we've been burned before.
I really think that this is one of those movies that's really made for theaters, and if you're able to just go along for the ride, it's a lot of fun.
Is it perfect? Hell no. But it's going to be up there for one of my favorite video game movies ever, if not my favorite. I mean, there's not a lot of really good ones, period, but this is pretty sweet.
I now think this is the second best Mortal Kombat movie ever, the first being Scorpion's Revenge, which this one also completely stole from, and not in a bad way.
I had a great time with this movie.
So let's have some fun with this.
I have a list of great things in this movie, some awesome things, but first let's call out the terrible things.
We kick off the movie with everyone's favorite techno. No, we don't.
First, the movie doesn't start with Mortal Kombat before the title screen. That's some crap. I hate it.
Are we sure this is actually Mortal Kombat?
Gotta love the fire and ice imagery in the opening logos.
So yeah, we got another story of Scorpion and Sub-Zero, as we do.
The movie opens with the classic Scorpion origin story. If you've been watching along with us this season, this is now our third iteration of this sequence. Even though this wasn't even included in the first 2 live-action movies, both the Mortal Kombat Legacy series and Scorpion's Revenge dealt with this feud pretty heavily.
We open in 17th century Japan, like kind of the height of the samurai times.
We begin in 17th century Japan, where we have Hanzo Hasashi, a member of the Shirai Ryu.
Hiroyuki Sanada does a great job as Hanzo. I really liked him in The Wolverine and Westworld.
He has his wife, his son, and he has a little bebe with him in this little compound in the village.
So at the start of the movie, Hanzo Hasashi, aka Scorpion, is just chilling with his family in the Japanese countryside.
We see the Hanzo compound. Hanzo is actually an ancient ninja clan. Hattori Hanzo was a ninja for the Tokugawa shogunate. He was part of what helped Ieyasu Tokugawa take control as shogun. So it's kind of a cool, like, historical tie-in.
Seems to be a nice, normal day. His wife asks him for some water while she's tending to the garden, so Hanzo grabs a couple buckets and he takes off.
And then he goes off into the woods, because what's the worst that could happen? To just leave his family alone. They all die. Everyone dies.
Welp, I just watched Scorpion's Revenge, so I know exactly where this intro is going.
Hey, I'm just saying, at the beginning, if Hanzo knew Sub-Zero was coming for his family, he should have held onto those buckets of water. Buckets of water are Sub-Zero's weakness.
While he's gone, Bihan, who's a member of the Lin Kuei clan, leads assassins who begin killing all of the members of the Shirai Ryu.
Just chuck a bucket at him, you know?
Hanzo hears his wife scream when Bihan approaches her and his son. Hanzo runs back to the village to find that his son and wife have been killed and frozen by Bihan.
Sorry about your baby, Hanzo.
Except for a baby. There was a single baby who was hidden beneath the floorboards, and at first I was like, is Mortal Kombat about to kill a baby? Like, is this movie gonna go that hard? But no. The baby, as soon as they put the baby in the floorboards, I was like, okay, the baby's safe. That's a plot baby. I know a plot baby when I see one.
Now, the opposite that was bad was Sub-Zero. Total killer.
Sub-Zero here is played by Joe Taslim.
Joe Taslim plays Bihan, who's a real martial arts master, and it shows.
He was Captain Jaka in The Raid Redemption, which I believe is one of the greatest action movies of all time.
I still haven't seen The Raid, but I've heard he's great in it.
He was pretty badass from the get-go, and while he massacres Scorpion's family and defeats Hanzo in the 1600s, he's actually called Bi-Han from the beginning.
I really appreciate the way that they use subtitles during this opening, with Hanzo speaking Japanese and Bi-Han speaking primarily in Mandarin.
And he speaks Japanese and Chinese fluently. Definitely following the dark arts there.
I also like how Bi-Han hasn't quite mastered his power yet. He's not full Sub-Zero yet.
I mean, it opens up in 17th century Japan as assassins are attacking Hanzo and his family, killing them all, as you would guess, with the freeze power.
I love the shot of Hanzo's family dead in the snow outside his house. It was very sad, very cool. I like the way that this was shot. It's very beautiful and tragic.
I will say, I think this movie improves on what Legacy did with this scene, and it even feels like a loving homage to what Mortal Kombat Legacy was trying to do with their version.
But right here, you can see where the inspirations from the game came, because if you're a fan of the games, you will notice it probably even more than I did, since I admittedly haven't played a lot of the newer ones in the series, so some of the lore and stuff might get lost on me here, but this was a hell of a way to open.
Hey, there's blood in this Mortal Kombat. That's new.
This intro is definitely a lot more metal than Scorpion's Revenge.
Wow, there's a lot of blood in this Mortal Kombat. Okay.
It's hard to compare this scene to the animated version because they're both very different tonally and story-wise. In Scorpion's Revenge, they were really leaning into the over-the-top gory action, and because in that one, Hanzo was the main character, they really wanted you to feel that visceral rage that drives him throughout the story. In this version, though, it's a little bit more grounded and a little more subdued, but it's still hard-hitting both in terms of brutality and emotion.
Having to see the family frozen is that was a lot, especially for starting this movie off.
So Hanzo comes back and he sees that his whole clan has been murdered. Then he's attacked by some red shirt punk asses, and he just completely wipes the floor with them.
Man, this opening scene, this opening fight, everything is badass. Samurai shit, brutal fighting. It's like watching a Yakuza movie or a samurai movie. I love this so far.
He is then attacked by a number of Lin Kuei assassins who he takes out, but then has to fight Bi-Han one-on-one.
And this fight is amazing. It's so bloody.
The fight choreography is definitely a lot better than some of the stuff we've seen in the past, and I feel kind of bad because like some of the Mortal Kombat and Annihilation people actually could fight, but they didn't show it.
I like that Scorpion's harpoon is a legitimate kunai and not a sentient CGI monster that shoots out of his palm.
Scorpion grabs his wife's gardening tool and uses it as a spear.
At one point, he ties a rope around a kunai and makes his classic, throwing spear from the games, and it's just crazy. He takes out a dude's brain with it.
I'm starting to get the feeling that this kunai on a string is not just some improvised weapon Hanzo devised on the fly. It seems like he might have used this before.
And then he does a get over here. We get a get over here in the first, 10 minutes of this movie. Then he goes into the woods where he meets Bi-Han, aka Sub-Zero, and they have a fight.
But yeah, right away, fight scenes were really good, in my opinion.
But the fight choreography in here is better, but I really don't like a lot of the framing for the Scorpion Sub-Zero fight, the Hanzo Bi-Han fight. There's too many cuts.
And again, the action is so good.
There's way too many cuts.
All the martial arts fights in this are really solid. I do wish, though, that they didn't use so many cutaways during it because it can be kind of hard to see some of the action sometimes.
I've watched this movie twice now, and the second time I could really feel all of those cuts.
Both Taslim and Sonata do a great job playing off of each other during the Scorpion Sub-Zero scenes.
Sub-Zero is part of the Lin Kuei clan, and he does not like Scorpion's Hasashi clan.
And the fight looks good. It's not like Annihilation or even some of the scenes from the first one where they're cutting so much because people clearly don't know how to fight. I don't know why there are so many cuts right here.
And it's still, I think this actually is my favorite fight sequence in the movie. Yeah.
And he holds his own for the most part, but Bi-Han is able to get the upper hand because of his freezing abilities.
But poor Scorpion gets his booty kicked in this fight.
Sub-Zero stabs Scorpion with his own weapon, severely wounding him.
So after being we're the best, get wrecked, Sub-Zero leaves.
We see Hanzo crawling towards his crying baby as he dies.
And he crawls to the cries of his child, and I just had a kid, I'm dying here.
It's really heartbreaking.
and then Scorpion is crawling back dramatically to his dead family, and then he dies.
And he disintegrates into flames.
And instantly, the flames of hell consume him.
After Hanzo is killed, he's dragged down to Netherrealm.
Like, hell was fast to cash in that check. They wanted Scorpion, like, right away.
Now, we know that his wife and his son were killed by Bihan, but the baby was hidden in the crawl space in the floor.
Hanzo dies, and Raiden appears looking very Big Trouble in Little China, which I like.
Raiden shows up and he looks awesome.
He goes for the boy.
Raiden, the god of thunder, arrives and takes Hanzo's surviving infant daughter to safety.
So Raiden shows up immediately after the death of Hanzo and saves his baby daughter. He disappears in a spectacular lightning strike.
But then Raiden shows up, and I gotta tell you, he's no Christopher Lambert Raiden.
Tadanobu Asano was a solid choice for Raiden. He's had some smaller roles in some pretty big American movies. He played Hogun in the Thor movies, and I'm pretty sure Hela killed him in Ragnarok. He also apparently played Genghis Khan once, which is pretty badass.
But he's a good Raiden.
Oh hey, Raiden arrived in a bolt of lightning and it didn't look like ass. Good for them.
I think they really captured the look of him, and I really appreciate the casting here because as much as I like Lambert, I think it's more appropriate to have a person of Asian ethnicity to portray the Japanese Shinto god of thunder.
Raiden shows up, and he goes into the Hanzo house and collects a plot baby from beneath the floorboards.
The opening definitely sets you up for just how bloody this movie's going to be. The blood on the flowers being rinsed away by the rain was a nice touch. I think this is a really powerful setup for the series as a whole, and an awesome way to start it off.
Now we're set up for this awesome, last of his ninja clan movie. I'm super jacked for this. This sounds awesome.
And then we get the titles over the Japanese woods. The music here is epic.
And, then roll opening credits.
We get the title card. Holy shit, you guys. Do you remember Annihilation? I just watched that last week.
Then we get a quick opening crawl. Earthrealm is on the verge of catastrophe. Should it lose one more tournament, the savage realm of Outworld will invade. But an ancient prophecy foretells that a new group of champions will be united by the rise of Hanzo Hasashi's blood.
Now we jump forward to present time, and the realm of Outworld has defeated Earthrealm 9 out of 10 deathmatch tournaments. It's called Mortal Kombat. If you've played a game or you've heard us riffing on the other movies, you know what it's all about.
Cut to Cole Young, a down-on-his-luck MMA fighter being coached by his daughter.
So anyway, right after the credits, we're introduced to full-grown plot baby. Now he's a guy named Cole Young.
We meet Cole Young. He's a former MMA champion.
It's almost immediately apparent that he's supposed to be Hanzo's descendant.
Okay, so we get introduced to Cole Young, who is not a character in the Mortal Kombat franchise.
Now, Cole has never been in a Mortal Kombat game. He is a brand new character and acts as our window into the universe, which typically I think Johnny Cage normally has been, or Jax was in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, but this time it's going to be Cole Young throughout the movie.
But they introduced a new character for us this time, presumably, I guess, for us to relate to. I don't know. But we introduced Cole.
And he is the new character and also the most boring character in the movie. But it's cool, because he doesn't really steal that much screen time from the cool guys, to be honest.
I did not dislike the actor, nor did I dislike his performance. But his character becomes a problem for the narrative.
My biggest complaint in the movie, and I knew it was going to be my biggest complaint coming in, so maybe I'm a little bit biased and maybe I'm not giving it a fair shot, although I did try coming into the movie to just, no expectations, let's see what we get. I thought Cole Young as a character kind of sucked.
But the story seems to be about the same. Instead of adding a new character to the group that I feel could have easily been anyone in the series.
Yeah, literally any character in this franchise could have been, an existing audience POV character would have been fine. Liu Kang would have been fine, Johnny Cage would have been fine, Sonya would have been fine, hell, Jax, you could name it, Kung Lao, all that would have worked. It would have worked fine.
I don't know. He didn't bother me that much.
Cole is the personification of studio executives sticking their opinions in movies they don't understand.
The studio deemed that an MMA fighter they needed a new guy and he had to be an MMA fighter and he had to be tied to the mythology of the franchise. So it's that's a pretty pretty huge anchor to tie around the screenwriter's, feet, like right off the bat. So, they did what they could for the most part.
Seems to be the guy who will take a dive and just fight anybody for $200.
And something that is very, very important to keep in mind, because it's one of my favorite tiny things in the movie. One of the first lines said about Cole by his manager is that, hey, it's Cole Young, human punching bag. Just put a pin in that.
Also, Jax is there.
Jax shows up just in time to watch Cole get his ass kicked.
And they kind of introduce Cole through, seeing him do his underground like MMA fighting stuff that he does for cash, I guess, to like build up that moment that, he's a really badass person, and we'll find out even more so as the story goes on, I guess.
He ended up being pretty cool. Like he's not terrible, but the whole time I'm just going like, God, he feels shoehorned in.
We cut to Outworld,
and right after this we get our first look at Outworld, which is pretty neat.
It looks like it's maybe based off of the Outworld from Annihilation.
We see Outworld for the first time, and it looks absolutely desolate and otherworldly.
Very weird look that they decided to go with here.
I don't have much to say about the design of Outworld. It's basically a big alien desert, but, that's Outworld.
But maybe this is based off of a Mortal Kombat map that I'm not familiar with. I'm not sure. I never really played any of the Mortal Kombats after the one where you can see Sub-Zero's face for the first time. I think that's 3, maybe. I played them all in the arcade or at friends' houses. I never owned any of the games, so I feel like maybe this is like canon to the games, but Outworld doesn't look great. It looks very boring.
It could use a few more giant skeletons or something.
Almost seems like a post-apocalyptic Mad Maxian hellscape.
So apparently the plot is that certain people are born with the Mortal Kombat logo birthmark, and they have been selected to fight for Earthrealm in the next Mortal Kombat tournament.
If Outworld wins the 10th tournament, they get to invade and conquer Earth. The difference in this story, though, there is an ancient prophecy that is uncovered that states the blood of Hanzo Hasashi will unite a new generation of Earthrealm champions that will prevent Outworld's victory.
Anyway, we meet Shang Tsung, who is having a little chat with Sub-Zero.
Shang Tsung says, "The prophecy is upon us." Bi-Han responds, "There is no prophecy. Hanzo's a ghost. I killed him centuries ago."
And Shang Tsung wants to basically cheat at the next Mortal Kombat tournament.
But for this movie, Shang Tsung wants to take all these guys out before the tournament starts.
As we are approaching the 10th tournament, Shang Tsung is employing warriors to go to Earthrealm and kill any champions, anyone that could potentially put an end to Outworld winning the tournament.
Shang Tsung explains that their plan is to kill off the opposition before a tournament can even be held, making them the default winners of the 10th tournament, giving them the right to invade and conquer Earth.
Now, what's different about this version of Mortal Kombat in 2021, not just anybody can go and compete. You can only be a champion if you're identified with a distinctive dragon mark before the next tournament begins.
And it's interesting. I like the idea that when you kill a guy who has the mark transfers to you. I think that's a cool touch.
Who is given these marks, we don't 100% know, but we do find out that if you do defeat and kill somebody who has that mark, it then transfers to your body. So therefore, you would be an Earthrealm champion.
So he wants to kill all of the contestants before the tournament actually starts.
Because they're bad guys and they don't play by the rules.
Like, what a dick.
So for this version, Earthrealm has already fought and lost 9 of the 10 tournaments, and if they lose one more, Earthrealm's just lost to Outworld forever. So of course, as villains do, things weren't looking good, so cheating starts, and Shang Tsung sets up the final tournament to try and kill off Earthrealm's fighters before the final fight. Bad pool, man.
Because I guess it was a prophecy that Earthrealm would win this Mortal Kombat, so they want to make sure that it doesn't happen. So they send Sub-Zero.
Cole, of course, being the main target, as he is Scorpion's blood descendant, and we need to rid the entire bloodline, as Sub-Zero does, or the resurrected Sub-Zero. I don't know. I may not be completely clear on that whole thread.
And Bi-Han is very quick to say that his name is Sub-Zero. He wants to get that branding out there.
We meet Jax, who finds Cole Young. Jax hails him as the man who took the belt from Eddie Tobias, a former champion.
We get a quick nod to Ed Boon and John Tobias, the creators of Mortal Kombat.
That was a name mashup from the Mortal Kombat creators, Ed Boon and John Tobias.
And we find out Cole is a descendant of Scorpion, bearing a mark that this film calls the Arcana.
Jax approaches Cole and his daughter and asks about his dragon birthmark.
Back on Earth, Jax is like, hey, what's up with that dragon logo you get on you? And I swear to God, Cole is actually like, it's a birthmark.
Which, he just thought was a birthmark up until this point.
Bro, that is a dragon branded onto your flesh.
Jax has arrived to recruit Cole because he has a dragon mark, just like Jax does. So, the plan is to take him and meet up with Sonya Blade and the other Earthrealm champions.
So Cole is hanging out with his family at a diner.
Cole has dinner with his family, Jax is tracking Cole and coordinating with Sonya, and that's when it starts to snow.
And it starts snowing.
Enter
Sub-Zero.
Because Sub-Zero has shown up, my fucking boy.
I really like that Sub-Zero's really like kind of the main villain. He's certainly the scariest one.
Okay, so something I never thought I would say about a Mortal Kombat movie, a lot of how they deal with Sub-Zero is very creative.
Bihan attacks with a massive ice storm.
Sub-Zero's powers are badass. I love the effects. I love it with the snow.
Shattering everything on the block with boulder-sized hail.
When he's like flinging hail at everybody, like that's awesome.
It's very artistic. This scene where the daughter is eating ice cream outside and it starts to snow just kind of randomly. And it's like, oh, well, this is sort of a weird scene. And then when Cole's wife is like, hey, it's the middle of July. It shouldn't be snowing. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I know what that means.
Which Sub-Zero is not a very good assassin because whenever he shows up, it begins snowing. So you're going to know when Sub-Zero shows up to start running because there's snow outside. Living in New England, Sub-Zero is here for like half the year. I could die at any point.
Yeah, I really like this scene.
As a fan of Sub-Zero, I know this is like the villainous version, so I was expecting him to be an ass. He is very much that, but they made him scary.
Sub-Zero normally just shows up around a pile of bodies, but to just have him show up in snow is just like, it's so cool. It's such like a juxtaposition of his character.
At this point, I'm like, Cole's family's dead, right? Like, they're dead. I know a plot family when I see one. They are there just to give him a sad backstory. But, spoilers, they somehow survived the whole fucking movie. How?
Sonya and Jax following leads based on clues they found is a great idea.
Oh shit, this Jax has a role. I am really liking Jax's participation in this. It's pretty good.
I do kind of like that in this version we get Jax and Sonya explaining everything rather than always giving that job to Raiden. Raiden's a busy god. He doesn't have time to explain everything to all these puny mortals. I do think it adds to the urgency of the situation, having it come from these two soldier characters who are still piecing things together themselves.
That kind of idea would have been great to follow more than an entirely new character, especially considering the reason for that was to do it for the audience. They could have been in the dark too, you know. This excuse worked for Monster Hunter. It doesn't work here. There are too many characters in the lore of Mortal Kombat not to utilize them in some capacity to be the gateway for the audience.
Jax shows up in his SUV and saves Cole's family.
Anyway, then Jax pulls a come with me if you want to live and like drives him away in a SUV.
Makad Brooks, Jimmy Olsen from Supergirl, plays a perfect Jax Briggs.
While en route, they are attacked by Bihan, who is now known as Sub-Zero.
Oh shit, okay, so the kind of lame dragon birthmark is an official, like, genetic calling card.
So the whole birthmark symbol thing is pretty stupid when you get down to it.
I really like this a lot.
Jax then reveals that he also has the dragon mark and explains that it's not a birthmark, Cole. It means you've been chosen.
It makes more sense because, like, Christophe Lambert tells the people in the first Mortal Kombat movie that they were chosen to fight in this tournament. And it's like, who the chose them?
I mean, it's a nice way to excuse why this bizarre collection of characters would ever get together at all. But there's storylines in place for why they all end up at this tournament.
How do we know? You, like, Shang Tsung picked one of them, and then Sonya just kind of, like, happened upon the boat. Is it like, I don't know, people seem partially directed and partially forced against their will to be there. So this birthmark, I think, was solid.
I don't know. I just, the whole thing about the birthmark thing just bothered me. I know it was something that was kind of mandated, like these characters were chosen kind of thing. But I just like the idea of Raiden kind of cherry picking random badasses.
This feels like better writing to have this birthmark be the factor. Like, you may not know that you have to fight in this. You could be morbidly obese and that doesn't matter. This birthmark still means that you have to fight in the tournament, and it still means that Shang Tsung's gonna kill you without you knowing.
But Sub-Zero catches up with him, Jax gets out of the car, equips himself with a gun, and walks into a building to look for Sub-Zero.
They turn down a back alley and Sub-Zero is waiting for them.
Jax is able to rescue Cole and his family.
Jax grabs a massive gun and orders Cole to take his family to safety and gives them instructions to find Sonya.
He helps direct them to safety, go find his partner Sonya, and he stays behind to fight off Sub-Zero.
Then we get Jax vs. Sub-Zero.
And we do have a pretty decent fight between the two.
Sub-Zero and Jax Briggs fight in this frozen warehouse.
Can I just say how much I appreciate that all these actors can actually fight?
I love when Jax tries to shoot him with the shotgun and he freezes the pellets midair.
This fight is brutal.
And hopefully he's not too attached to those arms of his, because if you played the games and you saw his flesh arms, you know where this is going.
Let's see, I also liked how they introduced Jax's arms.
Jax holds his own pretty well, but Bihan manages to grab him by the arms, twist them, and then slowly starts to freeze them off.
Anyway, Sub-Zero freezes his arms and smashes them.
The scene where he fought Sub-Zero and lost his arms was really cool.
Jax gets his arms frozen off, which is badass.
Jax, unfortunately, is completely outmatched, and he has his arms frozen and shattered off by Sub-Zero.
The part where his arms just explode into icy chunks of blood was so painful looking. They're really playing this guy up as the villain.
Including ripping Jax's arms off.
I always thought that in the game Goro rips them off because that was Goro's fatality in MK1, I think. But I like that we get to see him lose them.
Again, rip Uncle Ben.
And then tosses him off the building.
Now, I don't know if it's worse than Goro ripping off Jax's arms in Scorpion's Revenge, but man, it's definitely brutality.
So the arms breaking off is bad, but I felt like it was a little better in Scorpion's Revenge.
I mean, getting them completely frozen and shattered into a million pieces was just brutal, and also a very good reason to get those arms. A far cry from the previous Jax, who just, wanted them to look cool, didn't really need them.
And that was a really awesome scene. I like how his head bangs off the thing as he's on the way down. Very cool.
If freezing and breaking his arms wasn't bad enough, Sub-Zero then knocks him over this precarious ledge where he falls at least 3 stories and busts his face on a block of concrete on the way down.
But yeah, he gets dumped off that ledge, and what really hurts is the remainder of one of his arms cracking off when he hits that ledge on the way to the ground. That was the brutal part. That was the last bit of dignity removed.
Did they just kill Jax? It feels like they just killed off Jax.
Jax should be dead, but it's Mortal Kombat, so whatever.
Sub-Zero really needs to work on confirming his kills. Just take their pulse,
Also, I like how they later explain that the ice cauterized his wounds, but I'd be worried about frostbite, especially that close to his chest.
There's a nice little Easter egg in the building where Jax and Sub-Zero fight that on the wall there's a little bit of graffiti, and it has a down arrow, a left arrow, and LP, which is down, forward, low punch. That's the combo for Sub-Zero's classic ice ball move.
Oh, did anyone catch the button combo graffitied on the wall behind them?
That's nice. That's a fun little callback.
But anyway, so Cole tells his family that he's not safe with his dragon marking, with his dragon birthmark, because Sub-Zero is gonna hunt him forever, so he has to leave and he has to go find someone to help him out. Then we get another quick Outworld scene, and we're introduced to Melina.
We get another glimpse at the breathtaking alien landscape of Outworld, which appears to be one of the moons orbiting Jupiter? Possibly?
Nothing in Outworld looks good.
We see what looks to be a lake entirely made out of blood, and there's this awesome shot of a Shokan statue with swords in each of its 4 hands.
We then jump to Outworld, where we get a little exposition dump from Shang Tsung and Melina.
And we meet Melina for the first time with her trademark size. This time, however, she doesn't care about hiding her hideous fangs behind a mask, which I can appreciate. You be you, girl.
And I'm not crazy about Melina's design. It looks like she just has strawberry jam on her face. I wanted them to go harder, like give her big ogre teeth.
Where she informs Shang Tsung that Sub-Zero has killed another Earth Realm champion, but one did escape. Shang Tsung says we need to increase and send more assassins. Melina questions if that's a smart idea, because if Lord Raiden discovers that they are cheating, that could have terrible repercussions from the Elder Gods. Shang Tsung weighs it off and says they didn't win 9 straight tournaments by following the rules, implying that the only way Outworld ever wins and invades is that they cheat.
Melina, let's finish this.
And then Shang Tsung is like, send in the reptilian.
Sai Zoth.
I'm sure some nerds are creaming their pants they used his canon name.
So that means that reptiles coming, baby.
Get to Gary, Indiana. We gotta get to Gary, Indiana, you guys.
Cole gets his family back home and then tracks down Sonya, who immediately kicks his ass with a flashlight. And Jessica McNamee might be the best Sonya blade to date.
This Sonya is pretty jacked. That was something that was missing from the other Sonyas. They all kind of had the look, but they didn't have the muscle tone that, Sonya was played by a fitness instructor and is built like a fitness instructor, and this actress really looks like she could beat somebody's ass.
So anyway, Cole finds Sonya, and Sonya gives him the rundown on everything she knows about Mortal Kombat.
Sonya takes Cole to her exposition room, where we've got probably the most complicated and absurd conspiracy wall ever put to film.
Conspiracy theory Sonya was a little strange. I thought she was pretty awesome, but the way they introduced her and had her role was, I thought, a little strange.
I know it's kind of a trope at this point, and I appreciate it, but come on, that's not a conspiracy wall, that's a conspiracy warehouse.
Sonya reveals that both she and Jax have been investigating the Mortal Kombat's existence and that a dragon mark can be transferred to anyone who kills the original bearer. Jax did not originally have the mark until he killed another assassin. We don't know who that is. Maybe they'll tell us in the future.
Sonya explains how Jax got his marking from taking out some perp with superhuman abilities that tore through their unit. I wish they had hinted at which character they're talking about. My money's on Ermac.
So Sonya's story in Gary, Indiana, are they saying Jax earned his marking from killing Blanca from Street Fighter 2? Was that a Street Fighter reference, the Brazilian fighter with superhuman abilities?
She says that her and Jax tracked down some guy in Brazil, and when Jax killed whatever that guy was, he got the Dragon Brand Zari birthmark.
Video game Easter egg cameo or reference? I've never played the Mortal Kombat games because I can spell words, and so I don't know how to evaluate whether there were any stuff.
We see a clipping of a Matoka warrior, which may or may not be Nightwolf, probably is.
We get a nice reference to what is clearly Nightwolf. I like that it's an old artist rendering from a history book.
There's a bust of Kotal Khan.
There's also an Easter egg of what looks like Kotal Khan's headdress from Mortal Kombat X, in some Mayan ruins.
And we get a glimpse of a vase that could have Motaro, or more likely just a four-legged race of warriors, a centurion on the side of it.
There's also a depiction of a samurai who has a striking resemblance to a certain Hanzo Hasashi.
And she's like, and it all leads to one thing, a tournament called Mortal Kombat.
Spelled properly, of course, with a K.
Cole is initially skeptical that the tournament is even a real thing. He points out that they spelled it wrong with a K instead of a C for combat.
I think that the fact that the character in universe could tell that combat was spelled incorrectly was good.
And then Cole has some Joss Whedon-style dialogue where he's like, are you serious? Combat spelled wrong.
But there actually is a legal reason for that. John Tobias and Ed Boon originally wanted the game to be called Mortal Kombat using the C instead of a K, but because that was a common phrase, they would not have been able to trademark it. So they exchanged the C for a K. Boom! Trademark.
And then we meet Kano.
Cole is able to track down Sonya to her hideout, where we also meet Kano, who is chained up in the other room and being interrogated.
The best thing in this movie? Kano.
I've met Kano for 10 seconds and I love him already.
Honestly, Kano's the best character in this movie.
And then in the corner, Kano speaks up, which he's been tied to a chair the whole time.
Oh, Kano, how we've missed you.
And Kano is just the best in this movie.
I think it goes without saying that Kano absolutely steals the show in this one.
Favorite, least favorite actor? I don't know, they were all fine.
All of the actors play their characters well.
None of them were, like, bad.
The biggest standout would probably be Josh Lawson as Kano.
I guess. Yeah.
He's a charming asshole who you love to hate.
Hell, Trevor Goddard did so damn well in the first movie that not only they changed Kano to Australian, they changed the whole movie series after him and the games. Filming down in Kangaroo Land this time because they took the pandemic seriously and were actually able to make a movie. Enough so that half the supporting cast is some sort of Aussie or Kiwi.
Okay, I really like this Kano, and he makes the most sense.
He stole the show, and his smart-ass take would have easily clashed with the character of Johnny Cage, so that's probably why it wasn't in the film.
But seriously, Josh Lawson as Kano carries this entire movie. As much as everyone thinks Cole is the protagonist and the audience surrogate, we all forget that Kano is also learning about the tournament and the crap about magic. And he does it with flair.
But some of my favorite moments pretty much only includes Kano.
I mean, not only is he useful from the beginning, because he defeats Reptile without some arcana.
And I didn't know it at the time, but man, Kano is probably my favorite character from the movie. Josh Lawson's interpretation of it, he is the most quotable person in this movie.
Every line of dialogue he has is just a treasure.
Womp womp. Your beer's and you're almost out. You have a pen. Want to write this down? Get Air Kano. Hey Gandalf, what does my fortune cookie say? How about I take that stupid fucking sombrero you're wearing, shove it so far you start speaking Spanish. I also give really good foot massages. Put a fucking shirt on, Magic Mike. No Harry Potter.
Man, Kano is the shit. I really like this Kano character. I think he's funny. I don't know if he's gonna rub some people the wrong way, but I think he's funny. He's cracking me up. I like him in this.
Kano is awesome in this movie. He's really great. He's super entertaining.
Josh Lawson absolutely killed it as Kano.
I've never liked how stupid and useless Kano has been. Like in the first movie, he is both stupid and useless. And in Scorpion's Revenge, he's kind of like a non-character. He's there, but there's no reason for him to be shown in there other than a plot device for Sonya Blade. But he's basically always been like a Disney villain henchman.
Oh my god, I loved Josh Lawson's Kano so much. He shows up in stuff from time to time that I watch, and I tell ya, I've enjoyed every character he's brought to life. I should really go look up more of his stuff.
This guy's not having any of that. He killed the dude Sonya was looking for. He is very capable. He is still just as much of like a dick, but he's not like vile. He's not disgusting like his predecessors. This one is just an asshole and an assassin, apparently, and he's really good at both.
Not to mention, he has so many comebacks to Sonya and the others, which don't even make sense unless I read every line spoken to him as well.
But anyway, I really dug his Kano.
They might as well just call this movie Mortal Kombat, Kano Origins. But he's still a bad guy and ends up getting got by Sonya, to literally no one's surprise.
And I really liked this Sonya also. But for me, it also brought back fond memory of the show Sirens. Anybody? Like, that was such a good show. It was canceled way too early, but back on track here.
And as they're talking, Reptile attacks.
Kano vs. Reptile.
Speaking of meh characters, Reptile was kind of dumb.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a moment. They did it. After decades of trying, thousands of hours of hard work from dozens of dedicated individuals, the impossible has finally been achieved. A computer-generated reptile that doesn't look like complete trash.
And Reptile in this movie is just straight up a dinosaur monster.
His fight with Reptile. Was that Reptile? Had to be Reptile.
I'm not a fan in general of like the animalistic version of Reptile. You know, I like the weird, enigmatic dude from like the first two games much more than I do anything after, you know, Mortal Kombat 4 and later. I could do without that Reptile personally.
I like the Reptile.
I wish that there was at least an Easter egg showing the Green Ninja character design he used to be, but oh well, he's a lizard creature now. And
so, didn't love that, but if you're going to use that version of Reptile in your movie. The way they did it was actually really cool.
Cole, Sonya, and Kano are then attacked by Reptile, who has his acid spit. He can turn invisible, and he looks far more reptilian like he did in Deadly Alliance.
It's a cool looking lizard creature.
Know someone mentioned in a previous one where they liked more of the humanoid thing, but like this to me, stir it up a little bit. If there are options to have Reptile be more of a reptile, then yeah, go for it. It's great.
And of course, the way they kind of figured out how to fight him was creative.
Best worst special effects? Well, the best special effect was the burning flare stabbed through with a knife, pinning it into the back of an invisible lizard.
Okay, first off, Kano stabbing the flare into Reptile so that he knows where he's at. Again, love that because he's intelligent. He's not a complete friggin' idiot.
That was cool.
The scene where Sonya does like the twirl in the air and throws the knife was kind of unnecessary, but whatever.
I thought that was really cool.
Reptile claws Kano's face. Sonya throws Kano's knife at Reptile and accidentally stabs Kano in the leg. Kano uses Reptile's acid spit to free himself.
This is another awesome fight. Every fight in this movie is awesome.
And came complete with Kano's OG fatality.
Kano's fatality.
I like the Kano pulling its heart out fatality. That's fun.
Sonya briefly helps Kano out, and then Kano manages to finish him off by ripping the creature's heart out.
And then, of course, Kano rips his effing heart out, and that was pretty cool.
I love it.
Kano definitely had a lot of my favorite moments, especially when he was fighting Reptile and just like punched through his chest.
But this one ends with Kano ripping out Reptile's heart.
And then, of course, Kano doing somehow, some way, managing to puncture all the way through this thing's body and grab its heart was also really great.
They are able to eventually defeat Reptile with Kano ripping out his heart with his fatality from the game.
Pulled out his heart and goes, Kano wins.
But the only good part about Reptile was the heart rip out and Kano wins.
And then he looks at the screen and goes, Kano wins.
Kano wins, you f***ing beauty.
Kano speaks in third person.
I'm sorry, MC. Please don't hate me.
Like, that whole scene was just done really well and a nice little throwback.
And it's so dumb. I love it. Oh my god, Kano's the best.
Dude, Kano needs stitches. Like, real bad.
Why is Kano an artist? Is this something from, is this a reference to a previous game? I don't know. Definitely doesn't really help the story, and I will say it definitely doesn't make me, connect to him anymore in a story way. So unless this is a, video game thing that I'm missing out on, this is kind of a waste.
There's an exchange between Sonya and Kano that also stood out to me. Sonya says, "You were never chosen. Fate has better standards than you." And Kano's like, "Lucky for you, I have no standards."
Okay, so kind of like a weird Kano brag. He spits in the hand of that garden gnome, perfectly. And, that's dumb and it's kind of gross, sort of leaning back towards that earlier Kano. But on the second watch, this scene is kind of establishing that Kano is literally good at everything he does.
So once, Cole finally discovers everything that's going on and his birthmark is actually more, he finds Sonya and Kano as they travel to Raiden's temple to train for the tournament.
Sonya tricks Kano into helping them, playing on his greed. Kano hires a plane to get them to Raiden's temple, which is apparently in the Australian outback.
Okay, so the group is now in the desert.
There's some good character moments here as Cole, Sonya, and Kano are making their way through the desert where they meet Liu Kang.
And something super small, but I really, really appreciate this. When Sonya and Kano are having their little spat, Sonya holds a blade to Kano's throat, and there's a little blood. Nobody ever does this. They will always show you in movies this is the sharpest sword in the universe. It's so sharp it can cut God. And then, they will just pressure that into someone, and then there's no blood for some reason. So I love the little bit of blood.
They then travel towards Raiden's temple, where on the way they meet Liu Kang, who apparently has been searching for Earthrealm warriors or champions, which is weird because he waited for the champions to come find him, but whatever.
The cinematography here is awesome. This shot of Liu's silhouette in front of the setting sun is pretty epic.
So after that, they decide they have to go to Raiden's temple. They take a plane to the desert. They meet Liu Kang, who immediately throws a fireball at them.
Okay, that's far enough, MC Hammer.
Liu shoots a random fireball at Kano.
And then whoosh, fireball to Kano's face. Oh, God, I love his character.
Oh shit, Liu Kang! I know that outfit.
Hey, they got cool fire effects too. Wow, it's amazing what you can do with Mortal Kombat when you can get the ice and the fire effects right.
And that's another thing I love about this movie. Every major move and fatality that you can think of off the top of your head about that appears in Mortal Kombat is in this movie somewhere.
Ludi Lin plays Liu Kang in this one. Prior to this, his biggest role was as Zack in the latest Power Rangers reboot, which is actually pretty good.
I like that they kept Liu Kang's mullet, that's great, but I'm already missing Robin Shou.
Man, this Liu Kang makes more sense to me too. He's like kind of always been this odd mix of knowledgeable monk and kind of dumb action hero.
But this is where we get Liu Kang, gets us up to speed on everything that's going on, which is, I guess, weird watching them all back to back, because with him being kind of the main protagonist and everything up until this point.
Although Liu isn't really a main character this time around, I do think they did a good job of establishing who he is and setting him up for the next movie.
Like we kind of put him in now for exposition. I don't know.
I honestly felt like Liu Kang and Johnny Cage in the first movie are sort of roughly the same person, just different attitudes. This one is like knowledgeable and knowledgeable.
Liu Kang is somehow more of a dork in this one.
He's really cool.
I like how Liu so casually uses his fireballs. The way he just uses his hand instead of a torch to light the way is pretty cool.
At first, I didn't love the casting on Liu Kang and Kung Lao. I thought they kind of both looked a little goofy. Liu Kang looks like he belongs in like a K-pop band, is what my wife said, and I thought that was pretty accurate.
I like that Liu Kang and Kung Lao were already training with Raiden, mainly because their fates are usually tied to the outcome of the tournament. However, we really didn't have a tournament.
It was, I don't know, it was kind of weird. Like, Liu Kang and Kung Lao were like, we know everything about all this stuff. And they kind of just got punked out a lot.
They also meet Kung Lao, who is a descendant from the great Kung Lao before they are brought before Raiden himself.
As the movie went on, though, I was like, all right, I get it. They're pretty good. They're not great, but they're pretty good, which is probably what you can say about most of the people in this movie. Like, they're not great, but they're pretty good.
Anyway, they meet up with Raiden at his temple, where there's gonna be a training montage. You just know it. You can feel it in the air.
Like a third of this film was a training montage in a Rocky film.
And we get kind of a lengthy montage of their training here, which, I admit, it kind of drug a little bit here for me.
They arrive at Raiden's temple, and Liu explains that they don't have much time, and they need to begin training for the tournament, because they are the last hope. The fate of Earthrealm is in our hands. Raiden's temple is awesome. The set design here is really solid. I love the images depicting previous Mortal Kombat tournaments.
So we enter the secret Shaolin temple, and we do that thing I hate where they're like, here are murals of other tournaments because this is a film franchise. Did you know that there were other games and movies in this film franchise?
In Raiden's temple, we get some more Easter eggs, some murals.
Of course, we've got that epic Shao Kahn mural.
Showing Shao Kahn in one. We've got the great Kung Lao defeating Shang Tsung.
We get what looks like a reference to Edenia, King Jared, and Sindel, I'm guessing.
We also have Argus and Delia, who are the guardians of the realm Edenia. Looks like they're watching over the body of Taven, I think.
There's one of Prince Goro just ripping a dude in half, which is awesome.
And then there's also one of Goro ripping someone in half, which may or may not be the great Kung Lao.
And finally, the ancient clan rivalry between the Lin Kuei and the Shirai Ryu, with Bihan killing Hanzo. Kano tries to steal Shinnok's amulet. Holy crap, that's totally Shinnok's amulet. That's an awesome little Easter egg. Did anyone else notice the ancient crystal Tesla coil thingy? I like how it kind of implies that even though everything here looks ancient, these monks have a surprising level of technology. There's even what looks like wireless lamps everywhere. Sonya finds Jax in the temple's hospital ward, and Liu explains that they're doing everything they can to save him.
And they're gonna give Jax some new arms.
Liu Kang brings the champions to meet Lord Raiden. Raiden is not impressed.
Raiden totally burns the out of Sonya by telling her that she doesn't have a dragon marking, so she's not important. But I think she's important. I know a plot Sonya when I see one.
He is very critical of the newcomers and mentions how they have not even unlocked their arcana.
He points out that Sonya doesn't even have a marking and that Cole isn't in shape enough to fight.
After discussing special moves, Kano turns to Raiden and asks, "Hey, hang on. What about me, Gandalf? What's my fortune cookie say?"
Kano calls Raiden Gandalf, which is hilarious. God, Kano's so good.
Raiden just lights him up with a lightning bolt, throws him back into a wall, and he's knocked out. That's our Kano.
Raiden zaps him with lightning and just says, "Powerless, arrogant." Once again, the design choices here are great. I like that Raiden's rice hat is metal. That makes sense.
I want to give a shout out to this movie for making a film about Shaolin monks fighting ninjas and casting actual Asian people. We haven't had this in a Mortal Kombat before.
Raiden then does a exposition dump on everything to do with the tournament. Kano pops back up and wonders what he missed.
Raiden lets him know that Earthrealm has lost 9 times to Outworld, so if they lose this one, then Outworld owns them forever. So Earthrealm almost has as bad a record as the Los Angeles Dodgers. That joke is just for Mark back at the Neatcast. He'll love it.
Raiden says, "The time has long passed. Our enemies have claimed 9 straight victories. One more victory and Outworld will gain control over Earth forever, and Shang Tsung will enslave the entire human race." Kano gets up and says, "Sorry, what'd I miss?"
But before the Earthrealm champions can begin training to unlock their arcana, Shang Tsung attacks the temple with Sub-Zero and Mileena.
I like when Sub-Zero shows up and he's just like, "LOL, thanks for assembling all the heroes, brah, now I can just kill them all at the same time."
Shang Tsung shows up just to stare down all the new champions.
We get a quick fight between Liu Kang and Sub-Zero. Another good fire and ice matchup. Unfortunately, Liu Kang is no match. That's when Kung Lao and his murder hat make an appearance. Kang and Kung Lao get ready for a fight as Shang Tsung is flanked by both Sub-Zero and Mileena. "Take whatever trophies you desire, but their souls are mine." Tsung's eyes go black, which is super creepy.
Raiden is able to intervene and erect a shield to save them off.
Raiden does the old playground "I have a force field" thing to keep him from hurting anyone.
Before anything can happen, though, Raiden shows up to intervene.
I feel like with Raiden, they kind of had to just well, Earth has a god on their team. They should just kind of win automatically, But, they said he's not allowed to interfere in the fights whatsoever outside of the tournament. He can't do anything.
It is forbidden to claim victory before the tournament begins.
Now, Raiden mentions multiple times how he cannot interfere, but yet Shang Tsung is clearly breaking the rules. He's going around, he's killing people, but the Elder Gods don't get involved. Raiden continues to not get involved. He just continues to stand there and stave them off temporarily.
So he just makes a big electricity shield and then, leaves. So, I don't know how I feel about Raiden. He looked pretty cool.
That's always a little plot hole that bothers me.